Kelsey. Thanks for joining me today.
Hi, thanks for having me.
Yeah, I'm wondering if you could introduce yourself so those listening in know a little bit more about you.
Sure, I'm Kelsey Sorry, she, her. I live in Kenosha, Wisconsin, and I'm involved in several areas of the Wisconsin Sierra Club. I'm on the executive committee as well as the executive committee for the Southeast Gateway Group. I'm on the equity committee, the lands team, and I'm part of the book club as well.
Certainly busy.
Yeah, lots of free time this year.
Yes. Yeah, great. Well, thanks for talking with me today. So today we're talking, though you wear many hats, we're talking about the equity committee today.
Yep.
And part of this is that we're setting the stage for 2021, thinking about what this commitment means to our organization and how we can grow as an organization. And so I just wanted to spend some time chatting with you so that people can hear sort of what we're thinking about as we move into the year.
Yep.
Awesome.
Absolutely.
So I'm wondering if you could start and just share what is the equity committee and why is it important?
So we're a group of volunteers and staff from all walks of life, all areas of the Sierra Club, obviously Wisconsin-based. But it's important because I think a lot of us over the past year and even before that realized that we can be better allies as individuals and as an organization or a group. We have a lot of work to do, a lot of things to learn and unlearn, and ways that we can move forward and be more inclusive and diverse and welcoming to all kinds of people with all kinds of backgrounds.
Yeah, I think that's great. I know that there have been times where we've posted on social media about an intersectional issue or about racial justice, and we get questions about how that's connected. So I'm wondering if you could talk a little bit about how equity and environmentalism are related.
Yeah, that's a really important question, and I think it gets overlooked a lot, and that's why people come with those kind of questions. But really, statistically, if you read any articles, BIPOC communities, communities of color, are at the front lines of the pandemic. They're at the front lines of the effects of climate change, pollution, also accessibility. Are people with disabilities, do they have access to the same trails and lookouts and parks that we have? Do communities of color have access to green spaces, or do they have to take 6 buses to get to the closest green space in their neighborhood? People of color are discriminated against in the outdoors. They have, terrible experiences where they don't feel like they're welcome. So these are all things that we're working on learning about and seeing what we can do to kind of change some of those things.
Yeah, that's great. Thanks for walking us through that. Could you share a little bit more about the goals of the committee?
Yeah, so definitely education for ourselves, for the leaders of the Wisconsin Sierra Club chapter, how we can reach volunteers with this kind of information so that they can learn about this, how we could be more welcoming, diverse, and inclusive as an organization. And especially now that everything's gone virtual, are we making our meetings as accessible to people? If English isn't your first language, how are you going to join us at a meeting? How can we get resources to you, even literature, things like that? Can we work on translating things? Can we work on having meetings where we have, our captions available? Are we doing sign language? What about visual impairments? How can we make these things more accessible to everyone? And are we being inclusive at the meetings? Are we sharing our pronouns? Are we making inappropriate jokes? We want to make people feel welcome.
Yeah, that's great. And part of that learning process is the equity committee put together a list of resources that we're recommending for Sierra Club volunteers and supporters to engage with throughout the year with us. Could you talk us through some of those resources and where people could find more information?
Yeah, so the resources that we put together, we worked for a lot of the last half of 2020 on these resources. We have books, articles, documentaries, videos, podcasts. So whatever learning style you are, visual, auditory, there's something for you on there, and a way to learn about what we're doing and what we're passionate about. And again, learning about that intersectionality between equity and environmentalism. So whatever you're interested in, whatever you want to learn more about, and however you learn, we've got something for you. We're also planning some articles in the Mirrorview newsletter, and we'll be following up with emails and webinars as well.
That's great. So I'm looking at the list now, and we'll share this in the description of the video if people want to follow along with us month to month. And it looks like January, we have 2 articles, a look at why environmentalism is so homogeneous and beyond checking the box, both about welcoming and diversifying organizations. And then our next read is How to Be an Anti-Racist by Ibram X. Kendi. I'm wondering, as you look through this list of resources, if there are any that you're particularly interested in engaging with, or feel like will help you learn the most. What are you looking forward to on this list?
I am a huge reader. I'm part of the book club, so I'm really excited to get into some of those books. The books are about anti-racism and about people of color experience in the outdoors. Right now, even for book club, we're trying to integrate those kind of books as well for our discussions. Right now, we're reading The Home Place, which is a memoir of a colored man's experience as a naturalist, a nature lover. That's written by J. Drew Lanham. And I'm really excited about that book. I'm very excited about How to Be an Anti-Racist, and I look forward to the discussions that come from reading these kind of books.
Yeah, that's great. Talking about these resources reminds me of a recent article that I saw flying around on social media that said that whenever there is attention drawn to anti-racism, white people join book clubs, right? And our initial response is to just read. And I think that's a powerful starting point, but I'm curious if you could talk a little bit more about, what's next, right? We read, we learn, but what comes after that? How do we engage with these resources further? How do we move this learning into action? I'm wondering if you could connect those dots for us.
This is something we're still working on as a committee, because this is all kind of new to us. What kind of organizations we can partner with, how we can have more community outreach, how we can take the things that we're trying to learn and reading about or listening about or watching about and adapt them to not only our everyday lives, but our volunteer work. And I think the first place to start is the book club, the education, learning, and then going there from discussion, getting feedback from members, new volunteers, and implementing all of this into practice.
Yeah, and I think what you mentioned earlier about some of those concrete learnings being added, right? How do we make meetings more accessible? How do we change the practices we do, the culture of our organization, right? So it's not just let's read something to read something and talk about it, but let's learn and apply it. And I think that's such an important part of the committee. Yeah, I'm interested to see if you have anything else you'd like to add or anything else that's on your mind.
I know that we're going to be talking about equity and some of our plans for this year at the team kickoffs next week. So I'm not sure if that's something you'd like to talk about.
Yeah, that's a great way to get involved with our issue team. So I'm glad you brought it up. This is a series of meetings to help welcome new volunteers onto our priority issue campaign teams, all of which have that intersectional focus that you mentioned. So when we talk about transportation, we're talking about who has transit access, who is disproportionately impacted by highway air pollution or segregation. When we think about coal-fired power plants, where are they located, who bears the brunt of that health impact. And so, and then you mentioned, being on the lands team, we talked a lot about the land intersection and access. And so part of these values come into all of our issue teams. So we'll be spending next week walking through orientation and also creating plans for 2021 that each of our teams will be working on, and Equity Committee will be leading a session at those to help prioritize this in the work that we're doing and really implement it as a priority for our organization.
Right. I think that's great. And at that time, because it is so new, we can encourage teams to set norms that are more inclusive and really kind of start at the roots of everything.
Yeah, that's so important. And changing culture doesn't happen overnight. So I'm really appreciative of you and the equity committee working hard at finding so many facets of our work to help turn the ship that is the very large Sierra Club. So much
Yeah,
appreciation.
we've
Thank
got
you
a
for,
lot of work to do.
yes, that is certainly true. Thank you for talking with me today.
Thank
Um,
you.
and I'm sure we'll be hearing more from the equity committee.
Absolutely. Absolutely.